The desert wind howled across the red rocks of Vareth, carrying dust that stung like tiny needles. Hannah pulled her protective mask tighter against her face as she climbed over another boulder. The sun beat down mercilessly on this alien world, but she had work to do. She was collecting soil samples from the canyon, the same boring task she did 3 times a week. Hannah was 19 years old and had been working at the Human Research Station for 8 months. She had dreamed of exploring alien worlds since she was a child. But the reality was mostly paperwork and repetitive sample collection. Still, she loved being among the stars, far from Earth. She knelt beside a cluster of strange purple crystals and pulled out her collection kit. That's when she heard it. A sound so faint, she almost missed it over the wind. A whimper, soft and pained. Hannah froze and listened carefully. There it was again, coming from a narrow crevice between 2 massive rocks. She approached slowly, her heart beating faster. The research station had warned all personnel about the wildlife on Vareth. Most of it was dangerous. She peered into the darkness of the crevice. At first, she saw nothing. Then, something moved. Something small and dark red, like dried blood. Hannah activated the light on her wrist device and gasped. It was a dragon. A baby dragon. Hannah had seen pictures of Vareth dragons in the station database. The locals called them flame wings, and they were supposed to be extinct. The Skrell Empire, which controlled this planet, had hunted them all, or so everyone thought. This one was tiny, about the size of a large cat. Its scales were deep crimson, with hints of gold, but they were covered in dirt and blood. One wing hung at a horrible angle, clearly broken. Burns marked its back and sides. Deep cuts crossed its small body. It was shaking. The dragon's eyes opened slowly. They were bright amber, filled with pain and terror. When it saw Hannah, it tried to crawl deeper into the crevice, but it was too weak. It made a pitiful sound, like a frightened kitten. Hannah's heart broke. She had seen many things in her time on alien worlds, but never anything suffering like this. Someone had hurt this creature. Badly. On purpose. "It's okay," she whispered softly, even though she knew it couldn't understand her words. "I won't hurt you. I won't hurt you." She slowly reached into the crevice. The dragon tried to snap at her hand, but its bite was weak. It had no strength left. Hannah gently wrapped her arms around the small creature and pulled it out into the light. Up close, the damage was even worse. Someone had burned it with energy weapons. The cuts looked like they came from blades. This wasn't an accident or a fight with a predator. This was torture. Hannah felt sick. The dragon struggled weakly in her arms, but she held it carefully against her chest. She could feel its rapid heartbeat, its shallow breathing. It was dying. Hannah made a decision that could cost her job. She couldn't leave it here. She opened her equipment bag and carefully placed the dragon inside, making a nest from her spare clothing. The creature whimpered, but didn't fight. It was too exhausted. The walk back to the research station took an hour. Every step of the way, Hannah worried the dragon would die before she got there. She kept checking on it, feeling for its heartbeat, watching for breathing. It stayed alive, but barely. The Human Research Station was a cluster of white domes connected by tunnels. It housed 15 people, all scientists and support staff. Hannah had a small private room, one of the few benefits of her position. She thanked every star in the galaxy for that privacy now. She entered through the main airlock, nodding to the security officer on duty. Her heart pounded as she walked through the corridors with the dragon hidden in her bag. If anyone found out, she would be sent back to Earth in disgrace. Keeping unauthorized alien creatures was strictly forbidden. Finally, she reached her room and locked the door behind her. She carefully lifted the dragon from her bag and placed it on her bed. Under the bright lights, it looked even worse. She had no idea how to help it. But she had to try. Hannah had basic medical training. All researchers did. She gathered supplies from her personal medical kit and the station's shared equipment room, taking only small amounts so no one would notice. Bandages, antiseptic gel, bone stabilizers, pain medication, nutrient supplements. The dragon lay still as she worked, too weak to resist. She cleaned the wounds carefully, wincing at how deep some of them were. She applied medical gel that would help them heal. The broken wing was the worst problem. She had never set a wing bone before, but she did her best, using a bone stabilizer to hold it in the right position. The burns required special treatment. She covered them with synthetic skin that would protect them while they healed. The dragon whimpered during the treatment, and Hana whispered soothing words constantly, even though they meant nothing to the creature. When she finished, she gave it a small dose of pain medication and tried to make it drink some water mixed with nutrients. The dragon's eyes were closed, but it was still breathing. That was something. Hana sat on the floor beside her bed, watching the small creature sleep. She wondered who had done this. Why would anyone torture something so small and helpless? She had heard stories about young Skrell males hunting dragons for sport, but she had thought they were exaggerated. Now, she knew they were true. 3 hours later, there was a knock on her door. Hana's blood turned to ice. "Hana? Are you in there?" It was Taemin, one of the senior researchers. He was 30 years old and had been kind to her since she arrived. She quickly threw a blanket over the dragon and opened the door just wide enough to see him. "Yes? What's wrong?" Taemin looked concerned. "You took medical supplies from the equipment room. The system flagged it. Are you injured?" Hana's mind raced. I cut my hand on some rocks. It was nothing serious. I just wanted to clean it properly." Taemin studied her face. He had dark, intelligent eyes that seemed to see through lies. She showed him her hand. There was actually a small scratch there from earlier in the week. Not fresh, but it would have to do. Taemin examined it and nodded slowly. "Be more careful," he said. Then he paused. "You seem nervous. Is everything all right?" "Just tired," Hana said quickly. Taemin nodded again, but his eyes moved past her, scanning what he could see of her room. Then, his expression changed. He had seen something. A tiny movement under the blanket. Before Hana could stop him, he pushed past her into the room and pulled back the blanket. The dragon lay there, wrapped in bandages, barely conscious. For a long moment, Taemin just stared. Then he looked at Hana. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Hana lifted her chin. "Yes, I saved a life. You broke station regulations. You could be sent home. We could all face consequences if the Skrell find out." "Then don't tell them," Hana said firmly. "Please, Taemin, look at it. Someone tortured this creature, left it to die. I couldn't just walk away." Taemin looked at the dragon again. Its small chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. One amber eye opened slightly, looking at them with fear and pain. He sighed deeply. "How long has it been here?" "A few hours. Is it going to survive?" "I don't know. Maybe. If I can keep treating it." Taemin ran his hand through his hair, clearly conflicted. Finally, he said, "I'll keep your secret. For now. But if this becomes dangerous, if it threatens anyone on this station, we're telling Commander Jiwoo. Immediately. Understood?" Hana nodded gratefully. "Understood. Thank you." After Taemin left, Hana returned to the dragon's side. She gently stroked its head, and for the first time, it didn't flinch away. Those amber eyes looked at her with something that might have been trust, or might have been simple exhaustion. "You're safe now," Hana whispered. "I promise." The dragon closed its eyes and slept. And for the first time since Hana had found it, she felt a small spark of hope that it might actually survive. 3 weeks passed, and the dragon grew stronger each day. Hana named it Ember because of its glowing red scales. She spent every free moment with the small creature, watching it heal and learning its behaviors. The broken wing was mending well. Ember could fold it properly now, though it still couldn't fly. The burns had healed to faint scars. The cuts were closing. But the biggest change was in Ember's personality. At first, Ember had been terrified of everything. Every sound made it hide. Every movement made it flinch. But Hana's constant, gentle care slowly changed that. Now, when Hana entered her room, Ember would chirp happily and hop across the bed to greet her. Hana discovered that Ember was remarkably intelligent. She left a puzzle toy in the room one day, meant for human children. When she returned, Ember had solved it. The dragon had figured out how to slide the pieces into the right positions to open the box and get the treat inside. She tried more tests. Ember could recognize different colors. It understood cause and effect. When Hana hid food under cups and shuffled them, Ember could track which cup held the treat. It was as smart as any earth dog, maybe smarter. But there was something else. Something unusual. Hana noticed that when she felt sad, Ember would come and press its warm body against her. When she was happy, Ember would make excited chirping sounds and dance in circles. The dragon seemed to sense her emotions. She started researching in the station's database during her night shifts. Information about Vareth dragons was limited. Most files were controlled by the Skrell Empire and marked as restricted. But Hana was good with computers. She found ways to access files she wasn't supposed to see. What she discovered made her angry. Vareth dragons had once been common on this planet. Before the Skrell arrived, they had lived in harmony with the native Vareth people. The dragons had been revered, treated as sacred. There were records of them forming bonds with individuals, living alongside them for decades. Then the Skrell Empire invaded. They wanted Varath's resources. The native people resisted, and their dragons fought beside them. So the Skrell exterminated them both. First the people, then their dragons. They hunted the Flamewings to near extinction, calling them dangerous vermin. But the older records told a different story. Dragons were empathic. They could sense emotions and reflect them back. They were gentle with those who showed them kindness. They bonded for life with their chosen companions. They were intelligent, emotional, and possibly sentient. Hana looked at Ember, who was curled up on her bed, watching her with those bright amber eyes. This wasn't an animal. This was a person, in a different form. One morning, Hana woke to find Ember sitting by her tablet computer. The dragon was watching a video of Earth forests, tilting its head with curiosity. When it noticed Hana was awake, it chirped and touched the screen with its nose, as if asking what the green things were. Trees, Hana said softly. They grow on my homeworld. They're beautiful, aren't they? Ember chirped again and settled close to her, resting its head on her leg. Hana stroked its scales, marveling at how much trust the dragon had learned to give her. That afternoon, Commander Jiwoo came to her room. The commander was a stern woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and no patience for rule-breaking. Hana's heart sank when she saw her. "I need to speak with you," Jiwoo said, stepping inside. Her eyes immediately found Ember, who was sitting on the desk. Much larger now than when Hana had found it. The dragon was nearly the size of a medium dog. "Commander, I can explain." Jiwoo held up her hand. "Taemin told me everything 2 weeks ago. I've been monitoring the situation." Hana felt betrayed for a moment, but then realized Taemin had probably been protecting her in his own way. "I'm sorry. I know I broke regulations, but I couldn't leave it to die." Jiwoo walked closer to Ember. The dragon watched her warily but didn't hide. "What have you learned about it?" "It's intelligent, very intelligent. It can solve puzzles, recognize patterns, understand emotions." "I think dragons might be sentient, Commander. Not animals. People." Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment, studying Ember. Then she said, "The Skrell government has been asking questions. They've heard rumors about dragon sightings near our station. If they find out we're harboring one, there will be serious consequences. For all of us. No. What are you saying? I'm saying you have 1 month to prove your theory. If you can demonstrate that these creatures deserve protected status as sentient beings, I'll support you. I'll send your research to the Galactic Council myself. But if you can't prove it, you have to release that dragon back into the wild. We can't risk an interstellar incident over this. Hana's mind raced. 1 month. It wasn't much time, but it was a chance. I'll prove it. I promise. Jiwoo nodded. I hope you can. For all our sakes. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I admire what you did. Not many people would risk everything for a creature they just met. After the commander left, Hana looked at Ember. We have to show them who you really are. Can you help me? Ember tilted its head, and Hana could have sworn the dragon understood. The next weeks were intense. Hana designed tests to document Ember's cognitive abilities. She recorded everything. Ember learned to recognize symbols and associate them with actions. When Hana showed a symbol for food, Ember would go to its feeding bowl. A symbol for play made Ember bring its favorite toy. The dragon learned to open doors by watching Hana do it. It understood that its actions had consequences. When it knocked over a water cup accidentally, it made apologetic sounds and tried to clean it up with its wings. But the most remarkable moment came on the 23rd day. Hana had given Ember some colored sand and left the room to work. When she returned hours later, she found something that made her freeze. Ember had created a picture in the sand. It was crude, but unmistakable. 2 figures. One tall and upright, a human. One smaller with wings, a dragon. They were standing close together. Hana knelt beside the drawing, tears filling her eyes. You drew us. You understand friendship, don't you? You understand what we are to each other. Ember chirped and pressed its warm head against her hand. That same evening, Hana made another discovery. She had brought a dying plant from the station greenhouse to her room, planning to dispose of it. Ember became very interested in the plant, circling it and making concerned sounds. Then something incredible happened. Ember placed its clawed hands on the pot, and a soft glow emanated from its body. The air seemed to shimmer with energy. And the plant began to revive. Its brown leaves turned green, its drooping stems straightened. Hana checked her instruments. There was an unusual bioelectric field surrounding Ember. The dragon was somehow channeling energy into the plant, accelerating its growth and healing it. She tested it again with another sick plant. The same result. Ember could heal plant life with its touch. This ability could change everything. Desert worlds like Vareth could become gardens. Food production could increase across the galaxy. Hana immediately documented everything and sent her preliminary findings to the Galactic Research Network. She included videos of Ember solving puzzles, the sand drawing, and the plant healing. She argued that Vareth dragons were not only sentient, but possessed abilities that could benefit all species. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Scientists from dozens of worlds wanted to know more. Research institutions offered funding. Environmental groups called for protection of the species. But the Skrell Empire responded too. They sent an official message to the research station. They demanded that Ember be surrendered to their custody immediately. They claimed that all dragons on Vareth were property of the Empire and subject to their laws. Commander Jiwoo called an emergency meeting. All the station personnel gathered in the main hall. A Skrell enforcement squad was on their way. They would arrive within 2 days. They're going to take Ember, Jiwoo said grimly. Unless we can stop them legally, there's nothing we can do. We're on their planet. They have jurisdiction. Taemin stood up. This is wrong. That dragon is sentient. Taking it would be kidnapping, not property retrieval. Try telling that to the Skrell, another researcher said. They don't care about dragon rights. They care about maintaining control. Hana felt Ember trembling against her leg. The dragon had been allowed to attend the meeting, and it seemed to sense the tension in the room. She picked it up and held it close. Ember was much heavier now, nearly 40 pounds, but she didn't care. "I won't let them take you," she whispered. "I won't." That night, Taemin came to her room with supplies: food, water, camping equipment. The old Varath ruins are 3 days' walk into the deep desert. If you leave now, you might make it before the enforcement squad arrives. "You're helping me run? I'm helping you save a life." "Again." He smiled sadly. "Go. I'll tell them you went on a research expedition before their message arrived. It'll buy you time." Hana hugged him. "Thank you." She packed quickly, filling her bag with everything she would need. Ember watched with intelligent eyes, seeming to understand that something important was happening. As Hana prepared to leave through the emergency exit, she looked at Ember. The dragon had grown so much. It was strong now, healthy. Its scales gleamed. Its eyes were bright, with intelligence and trust. "Are you ready for an adventure?" she asked. Ember chirped and spread its wings. The broken one still couldn't support flight, but it was healing. Soon, perhaps, Ember would fly. Together, they slipped out into the desert night. Above them, 2 moons cast silver light across the red rocks. Ahead lay danger and uncertainty. Behind them came those who would harm what they didn't understand. But they were together, and somehow, that made Hana feel like they could face anything. The desert was cold at night. Hana pulled her thermal coat tighter as she walked, using her headlamp to light the way. Ember walked beside her, sometimes ahead, sniffing at interesting rocks and plants. The dragon seemed happy to be outside, free to explore. They walked for hours before stopping to rest in a sheltered cave. Hana set up a small thermal tent and activated a heating unit. Ember curled up beside her, providing additional warmth with its naturally warm body. "We're fugitives now," Hana said softly, stroking Ember's scales. "Both of us. I hope this was the right choice." Ember made a soft rumbling sound, like a purr. Its amber eyes glowed in the darkness, watching her with what she could only describe as affection. The next morning, they continued toward the ruins. The landscape grew more rugged, with steep cliffs and narrow canyons. Hana checked her navigation device constantly. The ancient Varath city was still 2 days away. By afternoon, they faced their first real challenge. A massive sandstorm appeared on the horizon, a wall of red dust that stretched to the sky. There was no outrunning it. "We need shelter," Hana said urgently. "Now." Ember chirped and ran ahead, disappearing around a rock formation. Hana followed and found the dragon waiting at the entrance to a deep cave. They hurried inside, just as the storm hit. The wind howled like a living thing. Sand blasted the cave entrance, but they were safe inside. Hana set up the tent again, while Ember explored the cave. The dragon returned carrying something in its mouth. It was a piece of old technology. Ancient Varath design, covered in dust but still intact. Some kind of data storage device. Ember dropped it at Hana's feet and chirped proudly. "Good find," Hana said, examining it. She would analyze it later if they survived this journey. The storm lasted 18 hours. During that time, Hana and Ember grew even closer. She taught the dragon simple games. Ember showed her how it could create small flames by breathing out, though it was careful never to burn her. They were like 2 friends on a camping trip, except one friend was a dragon and they were running for their lives. When the storm finally passed, they emerged to find the landscape transformed. New sand dunes had appeared. Old landmarks were buried. But Hana's navigation device still worked, and they pressed on. On the 3rd day, they reached the ruins. Hana stopped and stared in wonder. The ancient Varath city spread across a massive valley. Crumbling towers reached toward the sky. Broken streets wound between collapsed buildings. It had been magnificent once, before the Skrell destroyed it. Ember made an excited sound and ran forward. The dragon seemed to recognize this place somehow, though it had never been here before. Perhaps it was genetic memory, passed down through generations. They explored the ruins together. Hana found evidence everywhere of the civilization that had lived here. Art carved into walls, tools and technology, and everywhere, images of dragons. Dragons flying, dragons resting with people. Dragons and people living together in harmony. In the central plaza, they found something remarkable. A massive stone carving showed a dragon and a person touching foreheads, surrounded by growing plants. Beneath it, ancient texts described dragons as healers of the world and friends of all living things. They knew, Hana whispered. The ancient Vareth people knew what dragons could do. The healing ability. It wasn't just useful. It was sacred. Ember approached the carving and touched it gently with its nose. The dragon made a sad, mournful sound. Hana hugged it, and they stood there together, mourning a world that no longer existed. They made camp in one of the more intact buildings. Hana activated her communication device to check messages. There were dozens. Most were from the research station. Commander Jiwoo reported that the Skrell enforcement squad had arrived. They were furious to find Ember gone. They had searched the station and questioned everyone. Taemin had stuck to his story about Hana leaving before they knew about the Skrell demands. But the Skrell didn't believe him. They were tracking Hana now, using satellite imaging and heat sensors. They would find her within 2 days, maybe less. There was another message too. This one, from the Galactic Research Network. Hana's preliminary findings about Ember had caused a sensation. Scientists were debating the data. Environmental groups were organizing protests outside Skrell government buildings. The media was covering the story across dozens of worlds. Baby dragon, tortured by Skrell hunters, rescued by human researcher. Read one headline. Are Vareth dragons sentient? One young scientist says yes. Read another. The galaxy was watching now. But watching might not be enough to save them. That night, Ember woke Hana with urgent chirping. The dragon was agitated, pacing back and forth. Hana checked her perimeter sensors, and her blood ran cold. Heat signatures. Multiple contacts. Moving toward their position. The hunters had found them. Hana grabbed her pack and ran with Ember deeper into the ruins. They could hear engines now. The distinctive sound of Skrell hover vehicles. Lights swept across the ancient buildings. Searching. They hid in an underground chamber. Barely breathing. The hunters passed overhead. Hana counted at least 6 of them. Too many to fight. Too many to reason with. They're going to find us eventually, she whispered to Ember. This place isn't big enough to hide forever. Ember looked at her with those intelligent eyes. Then the dragon did something unexpected. It walked to a wall, covered in ancient carvings, and pressed its head against a specific symbol. The wall slid open, revealing a hidden passage. Hana stared. How did you know that was there? Ember chirped and disappeared into the darkness. Hana followed, her headlamp illuminating a tunnel that descended deep underground. The wall slid shut behind them, hiding the entrance. They walked for what felt like hours through the ancient passages. The tunnel was carved with incredible precision. The walls covered in faded paintings. Dragons and people working together. Dragons healing sick plants and animals. Dragons creating rain with their powers during droughts. Finally, they emerged into a vast underground cavern. Hana's light couldn't reach the ceiling. The space was enormous, and at its center stood something that made her gasp. A massive statue of a dragon, carved from crystal that still glowed faintly with internal light. Around it, thousands of smaller carvings covered every surface. This had been a temple, a sacred place. Ember walked to the statue and touched it. The dragon began to glow. That same bioelectric field Hana had seen before. But this time, it was stronger, brighter. The entire temple responded. ancient lights flickering to life throughout the cavern. Images appeared on the walls, projected by technology that still functioned after thousands of years. They showed the history of the Varath people and their dragons, the bond they shared, the peace they had known. And then the arrival of the Skrell, the war, the genocide, the end of everything. Hana watched with tears streaming down her face. This was proof, undeniable proof, that dragons were sentient, that they had been part of a sophisticated civilization. But would anyone believe it? Would anyone care? Her communication device beeped. A message from Taemin. Hana, get out of there. The Skrell aren't just hunting you anymore. They've declared Ember a dangerous creature. They have authorization to kill on sight. They're coming with heavy weapons. You have maybe 12 hours. Hana looked at Ember, who was still glowing softly in the temple light. The dragon had shown her this place for a reason. This was the proof she needed. But how could she share it with the world if they were both dead? She activated her recording equipment and began documenting everything. Every carving, every image, every piece of evidence. She narrated as she worked, explaining what she was seeing, what it meant. This temple proves beyond doubt that Varath dragons are sentient beings, she said into the camera. They were partners with the native people. They were revered. They helped create a civilization. The Skrell Empire destroyed that civilization and tried to erase its memory. But the truth survives. It's here, in these walls. Dragons like Ember are people, not property. They deserve protection, not persecution. She uploaded the recording to the Galactic Research Network with maximum priority. Then she sent copies to every major news organization she could find. If she was going to die here, at least the truth would survive. Ember came to her side and pressed close. The dragon was trembling. It knew danger was coming. I'm sorry, Hana whispered. I wanted to save you, but I might have just gotten us both killed. Ember chirped softly and licked her hand. The dragon didn't seem angry or afraid. It seemed grateful. Whatever happened next, at least they were together. Above them, the sound of engines grew louder. The hunters had found the entrance to the underground passages. They were coming. Hana held Ember close and waited. She had one weapon, a standard-issue energy pistol that researchers carried for protection against wildlife. It would be useless against multiple armed hunters, but she would fight anyway. She wouldn't let them take Ember without a fight. The first hunter appeared at the tunnel entrance. He was tall and heavily armored, carrying a weapon designed to kill large creatures. His eyes locked onto Ember, and he smiled cruelly. There you are, little vermin, he said in harsh Skrell language that Hana's translator converted. Your human pet can't protect you now. Ember is not vermin, Hana said, standing up with her pistol raised. Ember is a person, and I won't let you hurt anyone ever again. The hunter laughed. More hunters appeared behind him. 5, in total. They spread out, surrounding them. Put down the weapon, human. You're interfering with Skrell law. We'll be merciful and only arrest you. But the dragon dies. Those are our orders. No, Hana said firmly. The lead hunter shrugged. Then you both die. He raised his weapon. Time seemed to slow down. Hana knew she couldn't win. She couldn't save Ember. She had failed. But Ember had other ideas. The dragon stepped in front of Hana and spread its wings. The partially healed wings still couldn't support flight. But both wings were large and impressive when fully extended. Ember took a deep breath and roared. It wasn't the small chirp Hana was used to. It was a sound of pure fury and defiance that echoed through the ancient temple. The bioelectric field around Ember blazed to life, stronger than Hana had ever seen it. The hunters fired. But something impossible happened. The energy from Ember's field formed a shield, deflecting the weapon's blasts. The dragon was protecting them both. The hunters fired again and again. The shield held. But Hana could see the strain on Ember. The dragon was shaking, using every bit of strength it had. One hunter moved to the side, trying to get a clear shot around the shield. He aimed directly at Ember's head. After, Ember. Ember. No! Hana screamed. She threw herself forward, pushing Ember aside. The energy blast caught her in the side. Pain exploded through her body. She fell, her vision blurring. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was Ember's anguished cry. And then she heard nothing at all. Pain was the first thing Hana felt when consciousness returned. Sharp, burning pain in her side. She tried to open her eyes, but everything was too bright. She heard voices, distant and unclear, stabilizing. Severe burns, lucky to be alive. Gradually, the world came into focus. She was in the medical bay at the research station. Machines beeped around her. An IV drip fed medicine into her arm. Commander Jiwoo stood nearby, talking quietly with the medical officer. Ember, Hana tried to say, but her throat was too dry. The word came out as a croak. Jiwoo turned immediately. You're awake. Don't try to move. Where's Ember? Hana managed to ask, fear gripping her heart. Safe. The dragon is safe. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by confusion. How? The hunters. Jiwoo pulled a chair close to the medical bed. What do you remember? Hana closed her eyes, trying to recall. The temple, the hunters, the shield, getting shot. And then, nothing. I passed out. According to Taemin, who arrived shortly after, something extraordinary happened. When you were hit, Ember released a massive empathic pulse. Not just the bioelectric field it had shown before. Something much stronger. Every hunter in that temple collapsed unconscious. The pulse was so powerful that Taemin's team felt it from half a kilometer away. Hana's eyes widened. Is Ember okay? Did it hurt anyone? The hunters woke up hours later with headaches, nothing more. But they were terrified. They've never seen anything like it. Ember didn't hurt them, but it could have. The dragon showed restraint, even while protecting you. How did I get back here? Taemin defied my orders and followed you into the desert with a security team. He said he couldn't just let you face the hunters alone. When they found you, you were dying. Ember was curled around you, using that bioelectric ability to keep you alive. The dragon was healing you, Hana, channeling energy directly into your wounds. Without that, you would have died before they got you back here. Tears filled Hana's eyes. I need to see Ember. Soon. The dragon hasn't left the area outside this medical bay since you were brought in. It refuses to eat. It just waits. As if summoned by their words, Hana heard a familiar sound. Chirping. Urgent and distressed. Then, scratching at the door, let Ember in, Hana said. Please. Jiwoo nodded to the medical officer, who opened the door. Ember rushed inside, much larger than Hana remembered. The dragon had grown significantly in the days she had been unconscious. It was nearly the size of a large dog now, with powerful muscles visible beneath its red and gold scales. Ember jumped onto the bed carefully, making worried sounds. The dragon gently touched Hana's face with its nose, then examined her bandaged side. Tears that looked almost human fell from its amber eyes. I'm okay, Hana whispered, stroking Ember's head. Ember made a soft keening sound and pressed close, careful not to hurt her. The dragon's whole body trembled with relief. How long was I unconscious? Hana asked Jiwoo. 5 days. And in those 5 days, the galaxy has changed. Jiwoo activated a wall screen. News reports from dozens of worlds appeared. Hana's recording from the ancient temple was everywhere. The images of the carvings, the projected history, the proof of dragon sentience. It had gone viral across every major network. Baby dragon saves human who saved it, read one headline. Ancient civilization, destroyed to hide. Dragon rights, read another. Galactic protests, demand Skrell, withdraw from Vareth. Environmental groups had organized massive demonstrations. Scientists were calling for immediate protection of all remaining dragons. Political leaders from human worlds were demanding investigations. The story had captured hearts and minds across the galaxy, but the Skrell Empire was fighting back. Their official position was that the temple recordings were faked. They claimed dragons were dangerous animals, not sentient beings. They insisted that Hana was a criminal who had stolen Skrell property. The Galactic Council has called for an emergency session, Jiwoo explained. They're going to rule on whether dragons qualify for sentient species protection. If they rule in our favor, the Skrell will have to stop hunting them. But if they rule against us, Ember and all the other dragons will be killed. Hana finished quietly. There's more. Remember those data devices Ember found in the cave during the sandstorm? Taemin analyzed them. They contain genetic records, a complete database of dragon DNA from thousands of individuals. The ancient Varath people had been preserving it, probably hoping their dragons could someday return. Hana sat up despite the pain, excitement overriding caution. That means we could find other dragons. If any survived, we could locate them. We already did. Using satellite imaging and the genetic signatures, we found 3 more dragons. Adults, hiding in the deep desert. They're the last ones. Hana. Just 3 adults and Ember. 4 dragons left in the entire world. The weight of that knowledge settled on Hana's shoulders. 4 dragons. An entire species hanging by a thread. We need to protect them, she said firmly. The Galactic Council hearing is in 3 days. You'll need to testify. Are you strong enough? Hana looked at Ember, who gazed back with intelligent, trusting eyes. The next days were a blur of preparation. Hana worked with lawyers and scientists to prepare her testimony. She reviewed all the evidence. The temple recordings, the ancient texts, Ember's demonstrated intelligence, the healing abilities, the empathic nature. Taemin helped her compile everything into a comprehensive presentation. You know they're going to attack your credibility, he warned. They'll say you're emotionally compromised, that you've anthropomorphized an animal. Let them try, Hana said. I have proof, and I have Ember. The dragon had barely left her side since she woke up. Ember seemed to understand that something important was happening. The dragon watched Hana work, occasionally bringing her food or water as if trying to help. One night, Hana couldn't sleep. The pain medication made her restless. She found Ember awake too, staring out the window at the stars. Do you know what's happening? She asked softly. Do you understand that we're fighting for your life? For your species? Ember turned and looked at her. Then the dragon did something it had never done before. It carefully picked up a stylus in its mouth and approached Hana's tablet computer. With slow, deliberate movements, Ember drew on the screen a circle, then a smaller circle inside it, then 4 tiny dots around the smaller circle. Hana stared. That's this solar system. Varath and its moons. You drew a map, Ember chirped and drew more. A crude building. Figures inside it. One that looked like Hana. One that looked like a dragon. You understand, Hana whispered in awe. You understand that we're trying to help you. That we're talking to others about you. Ember set down the stylus and touched Hana's hand with its nose. The dragon's eyes held intelligence, emotion, and unmistakable understanding. I won't let you down, Hana promised. No matter what happens at that hearing. The day of the Galactic Council session arrived. It was held via quantum communication link, with representatives from hundreds of worlds participating. The chamber was a vast virtual space, where avatars of council members sat in a great circle. Hana stood in the center, her physical body still at the research station, but her avatar projected into the council chamber. Ember sat beside her. The dragon's avatar was perfectly rendered, showing every detail of its beautiful scales. The Skrell representative spoke first. He was tall and imposing, his avatar designed to intimidate. This is a waste of the council's time. Vareth dragons are animals. They are property of the Skrell Empire under ancient treaty law. This human stole one, and should be prosecuted. Ancient treaty law based on lies, Hana countered. The Skrell knew dragons were sentient. They exterminated them anyway to hide the genocide of the Varoth people. Prove it, the Skrell representative demanded. Hana played her temple recording. The ancient carvings, the projected history, the evidence of civilization. When it finished, murmurs ran through the council chamber. Computer-generated fakes, the Skrell representative said dismissively. Then explain this, Hana said. She played recordings of Ember solving complex puzzles, drawing pictures, understanding symbols, demonstrating the healing ability on plants, trained animal behavior. Dogs can be taught tricks too. Dogs can't draw maps of solar systems they've never seen, Hana shot back. She showed Ember's drawing from the previous night. More murmurs. The council members were paying attention now. A representative from a human colony world spoke up. Even if we accept that these creatures show intelligence, that doesn't prove sentience. Many species are intelligent without being sentient. Then let Ember prove it, Hana said. She had been planning this moment carefully. She looked at Ember and spoke clearly. Ember, if you can understand me, please approach the council speaker and bow. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Skrell representative smiled smugly. See? It doesn't understand. Some, any. Some, any. Some. Ember stood up and walked across the virtual chamber, directly to the council speaker, an elderly female from a neutral world. The dragon stopped before her avatar and lowered its head in a clear, deliberate bow. The chamber erupted in excited conversation. The council speaker herself looked shocked. Did it just show respect? Understanding of social protocol? Did. Ember understands everything, Hana said. Language, symbols, social structure, cause and effect. Ember feels emotions, forms relationships, demonstrates creativity. By every measure we use to define sentience. Dragons. Qualify. Overthreepeat. 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 Wither in 48ing a minter. In intensive videos. Overthreepeat. 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 To overthreepeat. The Skrell representative stood. This proves nothing. The human could have programmed the hologram. This programmed clue. This isn't a hologram, another council member said, checking their instruments. This is a real-time quantum transmission. The dragon is actually there. Actually doing this. The debate continued for hours. Scientists testified. Experts argued. Evidence was examined from every angle. Through it all, Ember sat calmly beside Hana, occasionally responding to direct questions with appropriate behaviors. Finally, the council speaker called for a vote. All in favor of granting Vareth dragons protected sentient species status? Hana held her breath. Ember pressed against her leg, sensing her tension. The votes appeared on the display. Green for yes. Red for no. The colors filled the screen. One by one. Green. Green. Red. Green. Green. Red. Green. When the final vote registered, Hana's legs nearly gave out. The result was clear. 68% in favor. Dragons were officially recognized as sentient beings, the council speaker announced formally. The Galactic Council recognizes Vareth dragons as sentient beings deserving full protection under galactic law. All hunting, killing, or harm of these beings is hereby forbidden. The Skrell Empire is ordered to cease all hostile actions immediately. Ember chirped happily, sensing Hana's joy even if the dragon didn't fully understand the legal implications. But the Skrell representative wasn't finished. The council doesn't have authority over Skrell sovereign territory. We reject this ruling. Vareth belongs to us, and will enforce our laws as we see fit. Then you'll do so without Verath, another council member said. This one represented a coalition of scientific worlds. I propose immediate sanctions against the Skrell Empire and transfer of Verath stewardship to a joint human scientific council for dragon protection. The debate began again, but Hana barely heard it. She hugged Ember close, tears of relief streaming down her face. They had won the most important battle. Dragons were people now, recognized across the galaxy. Whatever came next, that victory could never be taken away. 5 years had passed since that historic Galactic Council session, and Verath had been transformed. Hana stood on a hillside overlooking what had once been barren desert, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. But the landscape below was no longer dead and empty. Gardens stretched across the valley. Earth plants grew alongside native Verath vegetation, all thriving in soil that had been lifeless for generations. Trees provided shade, streams of clean water wound through the greenery, and flying above it all, their scales glittering in the fading light, were dragons, dozens of them, all different sizes, from tiny hatchlings to massive adults with wingspans of 30 feet. They soared and played, their cheerful calls echoing across the valley. It was a sight that filled Hana's heart with joy every single time she saw it. Ember landed beside her. No longer the small, wounded creature she had found in that crevice. The dragon was magnificent now, fully grown at 20 feet from nose to tail. Ember's red and gold scales gleamed like polished metal. The broken wing had healed perfectly. The scars from torture had faded to barely visible marks. Beautiful, isn't it? Hana said, reaching up to stroke Ember's neck. Ember rumbled in agreement, a sound like distant thunder. The dragon settled down next to her, and Hana leaned against its warm side. Even after all these years, their bond remained as strong as ever. The path from that council victory to this moment had not been easy. The Skrell Empire had fought the decision with everything they had. They imposed trade sanctions. They threatened military action. They launched propaganda campaigns claiming humans were invading their sovereign territory. But the galaxy had spoken. World after world condemned the Skrell's treatment of dragons and the hidden genocide of the Verath people. Economic pressure mounted. Scientific communities boycotted Skrell research. Even some Skrell citizens protested their own government's actions. Finally, under overwhelming pressure, the Skrell Empire agreed to withdraw from Verath entirely. In exchange for avoiding harsher sanctions, they signed a treaty granting the planet to a joint human scientific stewardship council. It was an unprecedented diplomatic victory. Hana had been appointed head of the Verath Dragon Conservation Project at just 24 years old. It was a massive responsibility. But she had Ember and a growing team of dedicated researchers to help. The first task had been locating the 3 surviving adult dragons. Using the genetic database from the ancient temple and advanced satellite imaging, they had found them hiding in the deepest desert, places where even Skrell hunters rarely ventured. The first dragon they found was a massive male they named Crimson. He was old and scarred, probably over 100 years by their estimates. He had been alone for so long that he was initially hostile, attacking the rescue team. But Ember had gone to him, and something magical happened. Crimson recognized Ember's scent, the genetic markers that proved they were the same species. The old dragon had broken down, the markers the process, making sounds of grief and relief. He had thought he was the last one alive. The second dragon was a female they named Aurora for her iridescent scales. She was younger than Crimson, perhaps 60 years old, and more trusting. She bonded quickly with the research team, especially with Taman, who had become the project's second in command. The third was another female named Jade, small and clever, who had survived by living in underwater caves. She was shy but curious, and she formed a special friendship with Commander Jiwoo, who had retired from station command to join the conservation project full-time. 4 dragons. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The real challenge was rebuilding the population from such a tiny genetic pool. That's where the ancient genetic database became invaluable. Using preserved DNA samples and advanced genetic techniques, scientists had been able to create viable dragon eggs. The first artificial egg had hatched 3 years ago. Hana still remembered holding that tiny hatchling, watching it open its eyes for the first time and chirp at her. Now there were 43 dragons on Verath. 23 had hatched from artificial eggs using preserved ancient DNA. 20 had been born naturally to the adult dragons as they formed mating pairs and families. It was still a fragile population, but it was growing. The dragons had helped transform Verath itself. Their bioelectric healing ability wasn't just for small plants. Working together, groups of dragons could revitalize entire ecosystems. They had restored dead soil. They had helped purify water sources. They had accelerated the growth of forests. The planet was coming back to life, just as it had been before the Skrell invasion. And this time, humans were determined to be better guardians than the previous rulers. "Hana!" a voice called. She turned to see a young researcher running up the hill, out of breath. It was Minji, one of the newest team members. "You need to come to the hatching facility. Something's happening with Egg Cluster 7. Hana stood immediately. Egg Cluster 7 contained 3 eggs that were due to hatch any day. She and Ember hurried down the hill, the dragon easily keeping pace with Hana's running stride. The hatching facility was a climate-controlled building designed to mimic the conditions of ancient dragon nesting caves. Inside, eggs rested in specially prepared sand beds, kept at precise temperatures. Cluster 7 was in the main chamber. All 3 eggs were shaking. Cracks appeared on their surfaces. This was it, they were hatching. "Get the cameras," Hana said excitedly, "and notify the team. They'll want to see this." Over the next hour, staff members gathered to watch. Even though they had witnessed many hatchings by now, it never got old. Each new life was a miracle, a step back from the edge of extinction. The first egg split open, and a tiny snout emerged. Then a whole head, covered in wet, dark blue scales. The hatchling tumbled out, chirping loudly. It was adorable and helpless, like all newborns. Ember approached gently and began cleaning the hatchling with careful licks, the way adult dragons instinctively cared for young. The baby chirped happily and tried to climb onto Ember's much larger head. The second and third eggs hatched within minutes of each other. Soon there were 3 hatchlings, 1 blue, 1 green, and 1 purple. All healthy? All perfect. 3 more, Taman said with a smile, updating his records. That brings our total population to 46. 46 dragons, Jiwoo said wonderingly. I remember when we thought Ember might be the last one. Hana watched Ember playing gently with the hatchlings, letting them climb all over the larger dragon while making encouraging sounds. Ember had become like a parent to many of the younger dragons, teaching them how to fly, how to use their abilities, how to interact with humans. Some of the hatchlings had even started bonding with individual researchers, the way Ember had bonded with Hana. It seemed to be a natural dragon behavior, forming deep connections with chosen companions. The ancient Verath people had understood this. Now humans were learning it too. That evening, Hana gave a presentation to the Galactic Research Network. These monthly updates were watched by millions across hundreds of worlds. The Dragon Conservation Project had become one of the most famous scientific endeavors in the galaxy. Population growth remains steady, Hana reported, showing graphs and images. We've successfully established 3 separate nesting sites to prevent population concentration. Adult dragons are healthy and reproducing naturally. Artificial hatching programs continue to supplement natural reproduction. She showed footage of dragons healing damaged ecosystems, working together in groups. Dragons are proving invaluable in environmental restoration. Their abilities could help heal damaged worlds across the galaxy. We're developing training programs for conservation work. Questions came from researchers on other planets. Could dragon genetic techniques be applied to other endangered species? Could dragons survive on different types of worlds? Would they be willing to work with other species beyond humans? Hana answered each question thoughtfully. The future was full of possibilities. Dragons might not just survive, they might thrive across the galaxy, helping to heal worlds damaged by war, pollution, or resource extraction. After the presentation, Hana returned to her quarters. They were no longer in the old research station. The conservation project had built a new facility, larger and more advanced, designed specifically for humans and dragons to live and work together. Her room had a large opening where Ember could come and go freely. The dragon was there now, curled up on a specially designed platform. 3 hatchlings were sleeping against Ember's side, including one of the newly hatched ones. "You're good with them," Hana said softly, not wanting to wake the babies. Ember opened one eye and rumbled quietly. The dragon's expression, as familiar to Hana as any human face, showed contentment and pride. Hana sat down next to them and pulled out a worn notebook. It was the same one she had used to document Ember's recovery 5 years ago. She flipped through the pages, reading her own notes from those early days. Day 1. Found a dying dragon in the desert. Don't know if I can save it. Day 7. The dragon is getting stronger. It watched me work today. I think it understands more than I realized. Day 23. Ember drew a picture of us together. This changes everything. She smiled at the memories. That scared, wounded hatchling had grown into this magnificent creature. That desperate attempt to save one life had turned into a mission to save an entire species. Her communication device chimed. A message from the Galactic Council. They were establishing a new award for exceptional service to sentient species protection. Hana was the first recipient. She dismissed the notification without much thought. Awards didn't matter. What mattered was the sleeping hatchlings, the dragons flying free above Vareth, the slowly healing planet. "Do you ever think about that day I found you?" Hana asked Ember softly. "How close we came to losing everything?" Ember lifted its head and looked at her with those intelligent amber eyes. The dragon made a soft sound, almost like a sigh, then gently touched Hana's hand with its nose. "Yeah," Hana said, understanding the gesture. "But we didn't lose. We won. Together." She looked out the window at the valley below. Lights from the dragon habitats glowed softly in the darkness. She could hear the calls of dragons settling down for the night, parents with their young, friends calling to each other. Somewhere in that valley was Crimson, the old male who had survived alone for so long. He had a mate now, Aurora, and they had 3 young ones of their own. He would never be alone again. Jade had bonded with a male from the artificial hatching program, a young dragon named Storm. They were expecting their first clutch of eggs next month, and there would be more. So many more. The genetic database contained samples from thousands of ancient dragons. With careful planning, they could restore genetic diversity. Within a few generations, dragons would no longer be endangered. "We did it," Hana whispered. "We actually did it." Ember rumbled in agreement and wrapped a wing around her, pulling her close. The hatchlings stirred, but didn't wake, safe and warm against the adult dragon's side. Hana closed her eyes, listening to the peaceful sounds of dragons sleeping. She thought about the scared girl who had found a wounded creature and couldn't walk away. She thought about the choice to break rules and risk everything for what was right. Sometimes, one moment of compassion could change the universe. One act of kindness could save a species. One person who cared could make all the difference. Hana had been that person. But she hadn't done it alone. Taemin had risked his career to help her. Jiwoo had given her a chance when she could have shut everything down. Scientists across the galaxy had supported the research. Millions of ordinary people had demanded justice for dragons. Change happened when good people refused to look away from suffering, when they chose action over apathy, when they stood up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. The dragon population would continue to grow. In 10 years, there might be hundreds. In 50 years, thousands. Future generations would see dragons as a normal part of the galaxy, working alongside other species, healing worlds, living in harmony. And it all started with one human girl who found one wounded baby dragon and decided that one life mattered enough to fight for. Hana opened her eyes and looked at Ember, her oldest friend, her truest companion. The dragon looked back with love and trust that had never wavered, even in the darkest moments. "Thank you," Hana said softly, "for trusting me, for teaching me, for showing the galaxy what dragons really are." Ember chirped softly and touched foreheads with her, the ancient gesture of dragon affection that Hana had learned from the temple carvings, a gesture that meant family, that meant forever. Outside, a shooting star crossed the night sky. Somewhere, on distant worlds, other species faced extinction. Other creatures suffered from cruelty and ignorance. But here on Vareth, hope was alive. Here, compassion had triumphed over hatred. And that hope would spread, carried on dragon wings to every corner of the galaxy, because one person had cared enough to make a difference. The future was bright. The future was full of dragons. And it had all begun with a simple choice to be kind. Hana smiled and settled down to sleep, surrounded by dragons, wrapped in warmth and love and the promise of tomorrow. The wounded hatchling she had saved had become a symbol of hope for the entire galaxy. And that was just the beginning of their story.